Every day, millions of people wake up, grab their phone, and hit play on a motivational podcast or YouTube video. They hear powerful music, strong voices, dramatic stories of success and failure. For a moment, they feel unstoppable. They picture themselves grinding, hustling, finally living the life they dream about. It feels like progress. It feels like they've taken a step forward. But here's the reality. They haven't done a thing. Because listening isn't doing. This is one of the biggest lies in the self-help and motivational industry. Listening feels like action, but it's not. Listening feels like preparation, but it's not. Listening feels like momentum, but it's not. Until you translate what you hear into real behavior, real effort, and real action, it's just noise. Why is this such a trap? Because your brain doesn't know the difference between imagining success and actually working toward it. When you listen to someone describe waking up at 5 a.m., grinding at the gym, building their business, your brain releases dopamine. You feel inspired, proud, even accomplished, even though you didn't move a muscle. That's why people can spend hours binge-watching motivational speeches and still feel like they're progressing. But the truth is, the only thing that changed was their mood, not their life. Let's take an example. Imagine someone named Ryan. He's 25 years old, stuck in a job he hates, dreaming of starting his own business. Every night after work, he opens YouTube and listens to hours of motivational talks. He writes down quotes, highlights the word grind in his journal, and posts clips on Instagram about chasing dreams. He feels productive. But months pass and nothing in his life changes. He's still at the same job, still complaining, still waiting. Why? Because Ryan confused listening with doing. He believed that by filling his head with enough motivation, his life would magically transform. But motivation without action is just entertainment. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Listening is passive. Doing is active. Listening is safe. Doing is risky. Listening is comfortable. Doing is hard. That's why so many people choose to stay in the listening phase forever. It's easier to feel good about your future than to actually build it. It's easier to watch a video about fitness than to show up at the gym. It's easier to listen to a speech about discipline than to shut off your phone and get to work. And the motivational industry profits from this. They know that if you actually took massive, consistent action, you wouldn't need their content anymore. So instead, they feed you endless speeches, endless quotes, endless hype. It's a business built on keeping you inspired but inactive. Because inactive people keep watching. This doesn't mean listening is bad. Listening can open your mind. It can give you ideas. It can spark courage. But listening is only the first step, never the last. Imagine going to a restaurant, reading the menu, watching the chef cook, smelling the food, and then leaving without eating. That's what it's like to consume motivation without action. You're surrounding yourself with the ingredients but starving your future. The real growth happens when you take what you hear and immediately apply it. If a podcast says wake up early, set your alarm tonight. If a video says take control of your money, sit down and build a budget today. If a speech says believe in yourself, prove it by taking one uncomfortable step toward your goal right now. The gap between listening and doing is the graveyard where most dreams die. Don't let yours end up there. Listening can inspire you, but only doing can transform you. Think back to school for a moment. You probably sat through hours of lectures, listened to teachers explain concepts, and nodded along as if you understood everything. But when the exam came, only the students who practiced, who actually solved problems, who applied the lessons, they were the ones who succeeded. The others realized too late that listening alone wasn't enough. Learning requires doing. The same is true in every area of life. You can read 10 books on fitness, but unless you put on your shoes and work out, your body won't change. You can listen to 50 podcasts on money management, but unless you actually create a budget and stick to it, your finances won't improve. You can watch every motivational video ever uploaded, but unless you act on even one of those ideas, your life will stay exactly the same. The trap of listening without doing is sneaky, because it feels like self-improvement. It feels like you're moving forward because you're gaining knowledge. But knowledge that isn't applied is wasted. In fact, it's worse than wasted. It can trick you into feeling accomplished while your time slips away. And time is the one resource you can never get back. Let's tell another story. A man named Alex wanted to become a writer. Every day he listened to podcasts about creativity, storytelling, and discipline. He followed authors on social media, highlighted passages in books about writing, and even joined online communities for aspiring writers. But here's the problem. Alex never wrote. He was so busy listening to advice that he forgot the most important part, sitting down and putting words on the page. Years passed and his dream remained just that, a dream. Alex learned a lot, but he never did. And because of that, he never became a writer. It's easy to laugh at Alex's mistake, but the truth is, most of us do the same thing in different ways. We binge motivational content. We read endless blogs. We take notes from speeches. But when it's time to step into the arena and face the discomfort of real effort, we retreat back into the comfort of listening. Why? Because listening is easier. Doing requires risk. Doing requires failure. Doing requires effort. When you take action, you open yourself up to the possibility of rejection, embarrassment, or disappointment. Listening shields you from all of that. You can sit in your room, hear inspiring words, and feel good without ever taking a risk. That's why listening is so seductive. It gives you the emotional reward of progress without the vulnerability of real effort. But here's the harsh truth. You can't listen your way to success. You can't consume your way to results. At some point, you have to do the work. The gym won't lift the weights for you. The book won't write itself. The business won't build itself. Success isn't found in your headphones, it's found in your habits. There's also another problem. Over-listening can paralyze you. When you consume too much content, you get stuck in what's called analysis paralysis. You have so much advice, so many conflicting ideas that you don't know where to start. You keep searching for the perfect plan, the perfect system, the perfect time. And in the process, you never begin. This is why so many people stay in the listening phase for years. They think they're preparing, but really they're hiding. They're waiting for the perfect moment. But the perfect moment never comes. Action doesn't need perfection. Action just needs to start. So ask yourself honestly, how much time do you spend listening versus doing? How many hours of motivational content have you consumed compared to the hours you've actually worked on your goals? If the ratio is skewed, then you know exactly why you're not where you want to be. Remember this, listening is only valuable when it leads directly to action. If you hear something powerful, don't just nod your head and save it to a playlist. Translate it into a concrete step, no matter how small, because until you do, all you've done is waste another piece of advice. Listening isn't doing. Doing is doing, and only doing changes your life. There's a hidden cost to endless listening that most people never realize. It robs you of urgency. The more you consume motivational content, the more you trick yourself into believing you've already done something meaningful. That false sense of progress dulls the fire you actually need to get moving. You feel accomplished without accomplishment, satisfied without sacrifice, inspired without impact. That's why you see so many people post quotes, retweet speeches, or share clips online. But when you look closely at their lives, nothing is different. Their actions don't match their words. They've built an identity around being motivated instead of building a life around being disciplined. Let's make this concrete with another story. There was a young man named Jason who desperately wanted to change his health. He spent hours every week listening to fitness podcasts, watching YouTube workouts, and scrolling through motivational transformations. He even bought motivational posters for his wall. But when it came time to actually exercise, he always found an excuse. He convinced himself he was preparing. He told himself he was learning before he started. But the truth was, he was stuck. Years passed. His health never changed. Jason thought listening was preparing him for action, but really it was replacing action. This is the trap. Listening gives you a small reward without risk. Doing, on the other hand, is uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth happens. No one ever transformed their body, their business, or their mindset by staying comfortable. Progress demands action. There's also something else to consider: repetition. Motivational channels recycle the same messages over and over. Don't give up, work harder, stay disciplined. You've heard it 1,000 times. Do you really need to hear it again? The truth is, you already know what you need to do. The problem isn't lack of knowledge. The problem is lack of action. At some point, listening becomes a form of procrastination. You're not searching for wisdom. You're stalling. And here's what makes this dangerous. The longer you stall, the harder it is to start. Habits of inaction build just as strongly as habits of action. If you spend months or years conditioning yourself to listen without doing, you're training your brain to stay passive. You're teaching yourself that consuming is enough. That's why breaking free feels so difficult. You're not just fighting laziness, you're fighting the patterns you've built through endless listening. So how do you break the cycle? The answer is deceptively simple. You replace listening with doing. Every time you feel the urge to watch another video, stop and ask yourself, what can I do right now with what I already know? You'll find that most of the time you don't need more information. You need more action. Let's imagine someone who wants to learn guitar. They could spend hours watching tutorials, listening to podcasts about musicianship, even reading interviews with famous players. But none of that will replace the simple act of picking up the guitar and practicing. Even 5 minutes of playing will move them further than 5 hours of listening. Why? Because practice is real. Practice is doing. Life works the same way. If you want to write, write. If you want to get fit, exercise. If you want to start a business, take the first messy step. Stop convincing yourself that you need more preparation. Stop believing the lie that listening is enough. The world doesn't reward what you know. It rewards what you do. And here's a thought most motivational creators won't tell you: you'll never feel ready. You'll never have all the information. You'll never feel perfectly motivated. Waiting for that perfect state is just another form of listening. Action doesn't wait for readiness. Action creates readiness. You don't get confidence before you act. You build confidence by acting. You don't get clarity before you start. You gain clarity by moving forward. Listening is easy. Doing is hard, but only one will change your life. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't actually want to do. They want to feel like they're doing. Listening provides that feeling. It's like watching other people work out on social media and convincing yourself you're somehow part of it. It's like listening to a millionaire describe how they built their empire and believing that by hearing the story, you've taken a step toward your own success. But life doesn't work that way. Success never transfers through sound waves. It's earned through effort. Think about athletes. They don't just listen to their coach. They train, they sweat, they push their limits every single day. The coach's words may guide them, but it's the hours of practice that shape them. Imagine an athlete who only ever listened to the coach's speeches but never practiced. They'd never make it to the game. Yet that's exactly how so many of us live our lives, listening without practicing. And here's the irony. The people you listen to didn't get where they are by listening endlessly. They got there by doing. Jim Rohn, Eric Thomas, Les Brown, they didn't build their success by watching motivational content. They built it by acting, failing, trying again, and showing up when no one was watching. If they had only listened, you would never even know their names. That's the paradox. You listen to achievers talk about doing, but if you never do, you'll never achieve. The gap between knowing and doing is where dreams go to die. So what's the solution? Start small. If you've been trapped in the listening cycle for months or years, you don't need to leap into huge changes overnight, but you do need to prove to yourself that you can take real steps. If you listen to a podcast about waking up early, set your alarm just 30 minutes earlier tomorrow. If you watch a video about fitness, go for a walk today. If you hear someone talking about starting a business, write down one idea and take one step toward it, even if it's just researching the market or designing a basic plan. The key is to close the gap between listening and doing immediately. Don't let hours, days, or weeks pass. The longer you wait, the more likely you are to stay stuck in the loop of consumption. Action has to follow inspiration instantly, or inspiration evaporates. There's another layer here too. Listening endlessly can actually become a form of escape. Instead of facing your fears, your challenges, your discomfort, you drown it all out with motivational noise. It feels safe, but it's a trap. Real growth requires facing the discomfort you've been avoiding. If you want to grow stronger, you have to lift the heavy weight. If you want to grow smarter, you have to wrestle with hard problems. If you want to grow wealthier, you have to make difficult financial choices. No amount of listening will replace the discomfort of doing, and that's why most people stay stuck. They never push through the barrier between listening and doing. They stay in the comfort of ideas instead of stepping into the risk of action. But here's the truth. All the change you want is on the other side of action. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. If you keep listening but never doing, what will change? Probably nothing. You'll still be scrolling, still be taking notes, still be daydreaming. But if you decide today to break the cycle, even with small imperfect steps, your life will look completely different. 1 year of doing will change you more than 10 years of listening. So here's the challenge. Stop making motivation your main diet. Use it as a spark, not a substitute. Listen less, do more. Stop collecting advice and start collecting experiences. Stop building playlists and start building progress. Stop nodding along and start acting differently. Because at the end of the day, your future won't remember what you listened to. It will only remember what you did. Listening isn't doing. Doing is doing. And doing is the only thing that changes everything.